Hi, welcome back. In the last part we made a start on our main body of our furniture. There's a fair bit of cleanup to do. These bottom drawers here actually need the hole cut in, and then they need scaling down, same as this top one. Add some cleanup with some bevels to do and whatnot, but we'll leave that until the end. I prefer to get the main body of the piece and all the elements together, and then I'll go around and do the little cleanup bits. So in this part I actually want to concentrate on the top of the table, and if we look, this rather attractive shape with these round corners, or rounded corners. They're not actually quite round, I think. So the legs come up and it meets as one sort of attractive piece. So there are a number of ways to do this. I'm going to do it by using a curve, making a cornered piece, and I'm only going to make 1/4 of it, and then I'm going to duplicate it across. So in order to get a better idea of what a quarter would be, I'm going to group this together. So just select it all and press Ctrl G, and you notice my pivot point's gone back to the origin of the grid. So I can use the center pivot, which you can find on our shelf, or modify center pivot. Okay, and now I'm going to drop into the top view because I want to get this to the center of the grid. So I need to be selected the group. If I just select a piece, that won't work. So grab the outliner, select the group, and then I can move this roughly to the center of the grid. And then if I zoom in on the handle here, I can press X, which will snap it to the grid, and then I can snap it to the exact center of the grid there. Okay, so now when I start building my curve, I know it has to start here and stop here, and that will be 1/4 of the tabletop. So I'm going to use a Bezier curve for this. Pretty much any of the curves would do. I have a preference for the Bezier one, but whatever you like, we'll do it. And I'm just going to rough this out. So once here, and then I'm going to put a couple of control vertex in here, a couple of control points, just to control the rounded corner part. So let's try and get those sort of equidistant apart, and then finish our curve off here. And you'll want to come in and make sure this is straight. Okay, so that's straight, and now let's straighten this one up too. And you can often save yourself some time doing this sort of thing, you know, by building just 1/4 or 1/2 of a curve and then mirroring it across, as we're going to do now. So this one actually doesn't need to be straight. I'm going to press Ctrl Shift, which should allow me to drag out the handles, and I'm just going to create the sort of rounded shape that I'm looking for, which sort of is about there. Then I'm going to press Enter to finish off my curve, and this gives me sort of that rounded shape at the corner of the table. So if I move this up now, there's a couple of ways I can duplicate this across. I'm going to actually turn it into a piece of geometry first, and to do that I'm going to duplicate the curve, go upwards, and then I'm just going to loft between these two curves like we've done before. Now a while later, when we do the trim, I'm going to show you a different way to do a curve and get the polygons out of it, but for right now we're just going to use the loft. So I'm going to go down to Surfaces, Loft, and when I want to have a look, I'll reset the options at this, and what I want is to make sure the span sections is not set at some incredibly high value. I want as little as possible, really. So uniform, all this is fine. It's going to output NURBS, which in this case is fine, and we're going to hit Loft, and it just gives me this. So I have two-sided lighting, and I'll turn it off, so you can see that the surface is actually backwards. This inside portion is, you know, correct, and this outside portion is incorrect. It's just black. So it's normally good to model with two-sided lighting turned off. Now I can convert to polygon now and reverse the normals on that, or I can actually reverse the surface direction on the NURBS object itself. So if I go to Edit NURBS and we want to reverse surface direction, there we go, and you see that now is the correct color. Okay, so if we just move this up, and I'll center its pivot, so I can move it up. And you know, you don't have to move it up, I just like to see it outside the curves, make sure there's nothing terribly wrong with it. And now I can convert this to a polygon. So we want modify convert NURBS to polygons. Let's just check the options box, and I want control points for a start, and this will give me very little geometry and it will look very square when we first do this. So let's move this up so we can see it in relation to the NURBS object, and you'll see this looks very square, but when we hit the 3 key to smooth, all of a sudden it goes into the same round shape. So we're actually fine on this. Now I want to get rid of any excess geometry before I start to duplicate this across. So let's just go into edge mode, F10 on the keyboard, double click to select this edge and delete edge. Again, it's important to remember not just to delete the edge by hitting the delete key on the keyboard, or it will leave its vertex behind. So delete edge. Okay, now let's smooth that out and make sure that's working nicely. That seems to be about perfect. Okay, if you're unsure about the shape and you wanted to change that before you went any further, if we go back to object mode, and in fact if we undo the changes until this last edge comes in, this last edge here is actually quite handy. If we select the vertex on the top and bottom of it, so grab both those verts, hit smooth, I can now use this as sort of a manipulator to maybe make it a bit rounder, a bit larger, or whatever I want. Okay, so you might want to leave this point in if you want some extra control. I was happy with the original shape, so I can actually just go back to edge mode, F10, sorry, and delete this edge. Don't need it. Okay, so that's nice and smooth. It's pretty much exactly the shape I'm looking for. So we can now duplicate this across. So back to object mode, and we want to make sure we've centered the pivot, and we want to select mesh mirror geometry. Now we need to know which way to mirror it, so this is going to be plus X to start with, because if we look down here, here is X in this direction, so plus X should mirror it across this way, and if we need to do that again to mirror it across in Y, so mesh mirror geometry. If we look at the options box, we've got merge with original and merge vertices selected, so this should now be one coherent object. Now I'm going to come in and select, let's see which direction we are going into. So that's Z, so that should be minus Z. Mirror. Okay, so if we throw a smooth on there, you'll see what's happened is now it's all joined together. Our edges have collapsed somewhat, and this is not quite as tight as I'd like it to be. So you know, I can come in and start throwing in a control edge. If I just put 2 in just to show you, so I'll use the edge loop tool and I'll put 1 in here and 1 in here, and when I smooth now, this is a much more defined circle than this. So this is, you know, the shape we want, and this is too stretched. But before I start putting those extra edges in, I want to actually make this so it has a top and, you know, a bottom. And herein lies one of the problems with this technique of lofting between two surfaces when you want a top. So if we just select the edges all the way around by double clicking and go to mesh fill hole, we'll get a top. It's fine, but it is a giant n-gon. It's a polygon. Well, it's not a polygon, it's an n-gon. It's a face with more than 4 sides. So when I hit smooth now, you know, this is just going to be a disaster. You can get away with an n-gon in certain circumstances. If you can fix them, you probably should. But, you know, if you're on a flat planar surface that's not going to deform and isn't going to be smooth, sometimes you can get away with it. But in this case, it's really easy to fix. So what we need is to retopologize the top of this table so it's all in quads. So let's go to object mode, use the marking menu to get the interactive split tool up. Whoops. And in fact, for this, I think I'm going to use the original split poly tool. It's far less annoying. Okay, so just click on the edge, slide it up until you meet here. Same here. Click on the edge, slide it up until you meet here. And we're just basically dividing this table into quadded geometry. Okay, so So now you can see why I didn't want to put those extra edge loops in until this was done, because once this is done, an edge loop will go straight across the top. Now it won't touch the top because the geometry is incorrect. So just keep pressing G, and let's just keep dividing this up until we get the correct topology. Okay, so let's see what we've got here, and we need another one across this way. Okay, so I've still got some n-gons here. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so that's no good. Everything else is pretty much quadded. So let's come in and see where we could perhaps split this up into 2 4s. Okay, and that's going to leave me with a triangle on this corner, which is not really what I want. So let's find a better way to split that. And I think I'll just split it straight down to here. There we go. And that's going to leave us with 1, 2, 3, 4 there, 1, 2, 3, 4 there. So that's going to leave us with no n-gons. You know, if you do create the odd triangle, really in this case it wouldn't matter, but if you can avoid it, you might as well avoid it, especially when it's this easy. Okay, so that's kind of retopologized the top of this table. If I press 3 now, you see that smooths out nice. And more importantly, our edge loop tool will now work. So if I click here, you'll see that puts an edge loop all the way around this way, and here that will put an edge loop all the way around this way. Okay, so we need to add detail later. That becomes pretty easy. Now we've got a quick decision to make. We can, because there's no bottom on this table, let me just move it out for you. Okay, so we've got a top, but we haven't got a bottom. So we could once again go into edge mode, select these bottom edges, fill the hole, and just do the same split poly, which, you know, is pretty fast. Or there is another way. You can select these bottom faces here and faces, and you probably should do this in the side view, but I think we can. So I've selected all those bottom faces that make up the edge of our table. Now I'm just going to delete them. Now I can select all these top faces, press extrude, so extrude the face and extrude the face upwards. Okay, so we get about the right thickness. And object mode, and now we have a top and bottom that share the same topology. Now when I put an edge loop in, it'll go right around the top, right under the bottom. So now we've got a table that has good geometry, basically. A tabletop, sorry. So I press 3 for smooth. Let's just go back to object mode so we can get a better look. And we've got those wishy-washy corners that aren't very defined. So let's fix that. Now, whenever we're smoothing, we're going to want some control edges to hold the shape. So first I'm going to put one in here to hold the top shape up, and one in here to hold the bottom shape. And then we'll need to create these ones to hold these corners together. Okay, and as I've said before, probably sick of hearing me say it, you might want to take a bit of extra time yourself and get this, you know, a little more precise. And just a couple more. Okay, now when we smooth, we should retain the original shape with rounded corners. Sorry, wrong button. There we go, as we do. Okay, now there are a couple of tweaks we'll be doing to this top, but right now it's looking pretty good, or pretty top-like. And I might actually save one of these curves, so I'll just hide it for now, Control H. Whoops. Okay, I accidentally grouped that. Control H, alright, wrong key. And let's move this top down and see how it actually fits on the top of the table. And it fits pretty well. Okay, maybe it could do with being a tad wider, but you know, we can always scale that out slightly. It's not really an issue. And there we have the top on our table. It's nice and round, it didn't take too long to do, we managed to get the shape. We've looked at a quick way to just quarter it across, so you don't have to build the curve all the way around. You know, pretty simple really. So in the next part we'll look at using a different or slightly different technique to create this trim around the bottom. We'll still be using a curve, but I'm going to do it instead of lofting, I'm going to use planar, which will create a flat surface that we can extrude backwards. That also creates, as this one did, some problems. We have to retopologize the top a bit. This will also create some problems, and to be honest, I'm going to do it in a different way just so you can see how I clean up both sets of issues. Alright, so that's the top done. We'll come back and do the trim in a second. Thanks for watching.